Hello and welcome to Medianama. Today we are talking about how India's digital hiring is changing across e-commerce, logistics, delivery, and gig work. These sectors hire at massive scale, especially in the festive season. But the real challenge is not only onboarding fast, it is making sure hires are safe, verified, and compliant. We see growing risks like fake IDs, duplicate profiles, banned workers coming back with new details, vehicle compliance issues, and even synthetic or AI made documents. To talk about this, we are joined by Ashok Hariharan, CEO and co founder of IDfy, a company that works on identity verification and risk management. Ashok, thank you for joining us. So,
Thanks for having me.
yeah, I'll start our conversation with consent and re-verification. So, as I know, IDfy has been chosen by MeetY for consent management. So, how do you see consent management actually working in practice when it comes to digital verification?
Yeah, I think there are, so I'll just give you a little bit of a flavor of what IDfy does, and then we'll get into the consent side. IDfy, we are a platform which eliminates fraud and establishes trust in transaction. So we call ourselves the trust stack of India. And we have three platforms. One is the onboarding stack. Then we have the risk and fraud management stack, and we have the privacy and data governance stack. These are all interconnected. So at the onboarding side, you can do the risk checks, and then you can get the consent as well in the same journey. Now, any verification or any onboarding you do, you have to get the consent of the user as per the law, as well as far as I am concerned, as it is it is an ethical thing to do, right? Like you shouldn't be doing things without my permission in the country. So when the onboarding itself happens on the IDfy platform today, when our onboarding and risk platform is used, our consent management platform is integrated in that, in being able to present why we are doing it, what is the purpose, purpose limitation, making sure that the customer knows exactly what we are going to do, and giving permissions which are specific to the activities that are being done. So that's something that we do, and we've been doing even before we had before the law. This has been, as a philosophy, IDfy has been following it because it's just the right thing to do. So yeah, so basically imagine this: driver or a delivery executive comes on our platform using a QR code. He scans it in, like, let's say, and then goes through that journey of onboarding. Before then he collects, he's asked for his ID card, his selfie, his address proof, and then he gets a consent page, which basically says we are collecting these documents for purpose 1, purpose 2, purpose 3, and purpose 4. He gives specific tick marks for that. That is then recorded in our system that the consent was collected, the time of collection, and these are immutable consent, right? In the sense, in the backend, nobody can go and change it, so it is immutable. So that consent is taken up front, and then the checks are done, which is an ID check, which is a selfie to ID match, the code check, etc., done post the consent being collected. And this is all done in about 11 minutes, right? So the delivery executive can start delivering in about 11 minutes. All the checks are done. Then there is repeat verifications that are done while he's on the while he's still, like, for example, if you're an employee with a particular company, maybe every 6 months they want to do a check. So that consent is also taken up front, saying as long as you are a part of our platform, we will do a continuous checks on the platform. Now, a user, because you just like you give consent, you should be able to revoke consent. That's part of the law. On our platform, there's the ability for a user to come, and just as easy as he's giving consent, he can come and click and say, I no longer give consent for my verification to be done. Immediately, our platform will stop that verification from happening on the future, and the data will be deleted. The customer of ours will get notified that this delivery executive had decided not to continue. So that's all part of what we have as a platform.
Okay.
And
So,
all our data is encrypted, all our data is safe, secure. There's a data vault behind it, so there's no risk of leakage. There's no risk of so that's all taken care of by the platform itself.
Okay. So, what challenges do you often see in this process of consent management?
So on the consent side specifically, in general, I'll talk about the consent in general and specific to the blue collar side as a uh, as a use case. In
Hmm.
general, I think one of the things that people have to be careful about when they're taking consent is there's a fine balance between how granular you want to make the consent and how easy it is to get onboarded. So there's what I would call user experience issues. Like for example, if you have 25 different tick marks a person has to do, it's consent fatigue. So a lot of
Hmm.
times what we recommend our to our customers is that don't take consent for everything upfront. You don't need consent. You need consent only for certain things upfront. You can always do bite-sized consent later. So in India there's this tendency that hey, मेरे पास data है and I'll now magically will do a lot of things with data. You don't like that's not right in the first place, and don't have to, right? Like just because you have somebody's ID card doesn't mean you need to do bunch like random things with it, right? If let's say you're a real you're you're doing real money gaming, right? Like you only need to know that he's 18 years or above. You don't need to know that
Hmm.
उसका पूरा चिट्टा नहीं चाहिए, right?
Hmm.
So be very careful about what you collect the data for and what you use it for.
Hmm.
So usage limitation and data limitation is something that I think is very important at the point of collection. Then the point of revocation, that is, I need to know that I can revoke my consent. How do I know, can I go to a platform of Flipkart or Amazon, and as easy as I'm giving consent, is it easy to revoke it, right? How
Hmm.
do I know what you have my data for? Who have you shared my data with? So for that, I think and we have a platform for that, right? Knowing that, oh, I'm Amazon, I have shared your data with these 20 players because of I have to do these 15 things. And knowing that that has been shared and knowing that that needs to be deleted later is a super important thing. So all your databases need to be connected to the consent management platform and the consent governance platform. That's your second layer, right? Like how do I know where is Aakriti Bansal's data and what has it been used for? Being able to know that at any given
Yeah.
time is important. Like a lot of platforms don't even know, like banks take data, they don't even know what the data was used for. They don't know who has access to it, nothing. So
Hmm.
now that you need to be very particular and specific about that. That's your second layer. The third layer is your third party data risk, right? Like I have given the data to this third party, that guy can misuse the data. So how do you know you're doing audits right and things like that? So your third party risk management needs to be very high. Then you have data governance, saying that, hey, I have all this data, I have replicate, I have data from here about you, I have data from here about you. And when Akriti comes and says, what are you using my data for? Do you even know where the data is sitting? If I said delete my data, where all should I go and delete it? I have given you my ID card. The ID card is sitting in 10 platforms. Do you know those 10 platforms have my ID card? Those kind of things, right? And being able to delete that. So
Hmm.
there's this whole thing about what do you do with data governance? Then the last part is, if a breach happens, if your data is leaked, how do I know where did it leak from? Did it leak from a third party? Was my database hacked, or did an employee misuse the data? So being able to
Yeah.
do what I would call data lineage, where how has this been, where could have Ashok's data flown to, and how do I know when a breach happens, who should I inform, etc. So it's
Hmm.
actually a product of about 8 products. It's not just consent management, because consent management is maybe 2% of the total problem, because your fines are going to be given for breaches of data and not just for missed consent. So those
Hmm.
kind of things you have to keep in mind. And I think that's sort of what IDfy does. Specifically on the blue collar side, I think the biggest problem is going to be, how do you present the consent, right? Like a lot of people are not native English speakers, so it needs to be presented in 22 languages.
Yeah.
In some cases, like going forward, maybe we'll need to get to a place where consent is provided in visual format rather than written format, because if a person doesn't understand what he's giving consent for, then
Hmm.
that consent, like, then what's the point, right? So how do I make it easily understandable for the person who
Yeah.
is giving consent? I think that is going to be the biggest sort of problem over the next 10 years that we will see, because the blue collar staff, a lot of them might not understand English or might have very rudimentary understanding, right?
Hmm. Hmm. So also, the Department of Telecommunications has proposed a new biometric identity verification system.
Yes.
Do you
Yes.
see risks in having multiple verification systems run by like different ministries? MeitY for consent, DOT for telecom.
No, I think it's fine. Yeah, like I mean, what I do feel is they should have unified policy. They can run it as separate systems. That's completely fine. But unified policy is super important, and I'll tell you why. Like the KYC process on telecom and the KYC process in banking should be the same, right? The reason I'm saying it should be the same is today the reason that you have a lot of mule accounts is the KYC in telecom is weaker than the KYC in banking. So these people get their phone number so much more easier than opening a bank
Hmm.
account. And they use that identity to then defraud the system. So I do
Hmm.
think there should be a unification of process. It doesn't have to be unification of systems. That can be separate, but process should be the same. So
Okay.
gold standard KYC, if KYC is done once on the telecom side, the bank should be happy that it was done properly. Like, it
Hmm.
shouldn't be that, oh, I don't trust this guy's KYC because he probably,
Hmm.
did some, did it the wrong way and stuff like that. And by the way, that happens a lot. Even between banks, the processes are different. So I think there should be like singular method that is followed
Okay.
for authentication, verification, etc. Because fraudsters are just looking for loopholes. If the weakest place is where they will go attack. So if it's not strong enough, they'll go attack the weakest of the pipe, right? And I think
Hmm.
that's where I feel like unification process is good.
So, my next question is that the DOT rules also talk about re-verification, for
Yes,
example, when replacing or upgrading a SIM.
correct.
So, how do you think repeated re-verification should be managed so it doesn't create user fatigue or like
Yeah, I see. I
service?
think I think the way I think about it is slightly different. I think user fatigue is one element of it. I really think the real reason to do KYC is fraud, right? Let's keep that in mind first.
Hmm.
We are doing KYC because fraudsters. We want to eliminate fraudsters from entering the system. So that is the most important. Why do you want to do re-verification when you do an address change? Is a fraudster might should not have gotten my phone number and
Hmm.
now uses my identity to then open a bank account, right? So that's why they're asking for it. Let's be very clear. And therefore I think thoda sa user fatigue is okay, right?
Hmm.
Doing that extra bit of verification kitna hi lagta hai, right? One, take the ID again, take a selfie again. That shouldn't
Hmm.
be like, that shouldn't throw you off. Like, uh, आईडी तो सबके पास होता है पॉकेट में,
Yeah.
or you can do an Aadhaar verification in about a second. That's not real fatigue.
Hmm.
I do think when an address change happens, when you are every 2 or 3 years, some verification needs to happen because I don't know if I think one of the newspapers, not you guys, but I think Times of India had published this about a year ago. There was a guy found with about 10,000 SIM cards, which he was using for fraud, like
Hmm.
bank fraud. 10,000 SIM cards. Now, where did he get those SIM cards? That's not in his own identity. He used somebody else's
Hmm.
KYC documents and take over somebody else's phone number. This is what we are trying to avoid, right? Like, let's be
Yeah.
clear. Like, we are trying to protect, not not make it easy for fraudsters to enter. And I differ from pretty much everybody on this topic because I do think fraud is a very big problem in India, and we need to be more careful about fraud rather than careful about, oh, this is not, oh, this extra 3 seconds, oh my god, what do I like, this is such a fatigue for users, oh my god. Let's be real. We are protecting people and not worrying about whether that 3 seconds extra
Hmm.
is a pain.
Yeah, okay. Makes sense. So, now coming to the bigger picture, when you look at digital hiring in India today, what are the biggest risks that businesses miss?
Yeah, so I think there are two
Hmm.
pieces on the hiring side you that you must do, right? One, what are we trying to do in general, right? When we are doing a verification, is does Ashok Hariharan exist? Is he the one doing the transaction? Has he committed fraud in the past? Is he likely to commit fraud in the future? ये चार question we have to answer, right? Does Ashok Hariharan exist? How do I know? I have an Aadhaar card. Aadhaar card database exists. You check to make sure that Ashok exists. Khatam. Second is he the one doing the transaction? You need to make sure my selfie and the selfie in the card is the same. Before that, you want to make sure the card has not been tampered, right? Like you can have your face put on my card, but that when you do a check against the database, it says Ashok Hariharan. but it's actually Aakriti Bansal who's trying to pretend to be me, right? Like, so you want to make sure that the card has not been tampered. So you do those checks. Second is check against the database, then you do a face match. But you also want to make sure I'm not a deep fake, right? What I can do is Aakriti Bansal is pretending to be Ashok. Aakriti goes and creates a deep fake of Ashok. So it takes the ID card. You found my ID card somewhere. You present that, and then you present a deep fake of mine as the compared selfie, right? So we have a deepfake detector to make sure that like you can't pretend to be me. So we do that at that phase. That's basically establishes that Ashok Hariharan exists and he's the one doing the transaction because you did a face match and you made sure that it is a live selfie. Then now the third step is to check the background. What do you want to do? If you're doing a check now, you want to make sure that Ashok doesn't have criminal record of in the past, and you also want to know where I live. Why do I need to know where I live? If I do something, I will go to my permanent home or I'll go to my current home. So you need to know, and it's by itself a deterrent, right? Like if I give my address, मैं थोड़ा सा डरता हूँ कि अरे यार कुछ कांड ना हो जाए क्योंकि my mummy and papa shouldn't know that there's like social sort of ramifications for this thing, right? So you are actually preventing the future as well by taking the address. Then you're running a bunch of checks on the address itself. Like for example, there are specific address locations which are higher risk, like Jamtara, etc. So you want to when you get a higher risk address, you might want to do 3 or 4 additional checks on this person. So this is sort of what you do at the point of onboarding. Then you want to do and then you want to also do one more thing at the point of onboarding is this guy hasn't committed is not the same guy who has committed some other fraud somewhere else in maybe my own system in the past and trying to come back again. So you want to make sure that you have a database of dedupe checks. Like for example, you are asking, right? I would create my own database of fraudsters that I might have, and then you check against that list with a face and say, hey, he's a known fraudster. Let's not onboard him. So you're stopping him from getting onboarded. Then the last check you want to do is at the point of delivery, you want to make sure that Ashok has been onboarded. But Ashok आज like maybe I'm थोड़ा बीमार हूँ मैं मेरे दोस्त को मैंने दे दिया ID card and here use my phone and deliver 20 packages. So but my friend Anil has not done any verification, right? So you want to make sure Ashok is the one delivering because your risk increases as a Zomato, as a Swiggy. So at that point, what you end up doing is you want to make sure you do a face match randomly in a day to make sure that it is the same guy every time. You don't do it for every delivery, but you might want to do it twice a day or thrice a day, but it's random. So you don't know when it's going to come, right? If you're doing 15 deliveries, it might show up 3 times. And that is good enough to kind of then establish that Ashok is the one doing delivery. These 3 things you should do. And then you do repeat checks, whichever we call delta checks every 6 months, because I might not have done anything, but in the process of my employment, I might have done something. An FIR might have been created for me, or maybe my vehicle, which I have used, has been used for some drug deal or whatever. I don't know, right? So those kind of things are important to check as well because the police can come after this guy. Then it all through then Zomato might all of that needs to be checked. So there are a bunch of things you want to do on the vehicle, on the individual, on the address, etc. So these are the 4 or 5 checks that you need to do. Does that answer it?
Yeah, sure. So, how have fraud risks changed in the last few years with the rise of gig platforms and large
I Yeah, so I think what I would say is that when you're hiring lesser number of people, the amount of fraud, like percentage frauds, are also lower. Like because you're a little more careful. This person is physically there, so you can do a lot of checks. Which I mean, when a person shows up physically, is less likely to commit fraud, just for deterrent purposes, right? When somebody is remote, he thinks that hey, I can get away with it because they don't know where I am. So deterrent nahi hai. So what we see is there's a lot more identity theft these days than what we saw in the past. We've seen a lot more, criminal records showing up because, like even the platforms are putting cases on people, right? So you do see so the good part is India has a lot of data, and that data can be used to assess. Which wasn't the case maybe 10 years ago. So we can do a lot more things than what we used to be able to do. Second is, I think a lot of the verifications have moved digital, and even the onboarding has moved digital rather than physical. That itself presents some risk. So those risks is what we tend to mitigate at IDfy, is that, oh, because you're not physical, do these additional 15 things. Or have a video call with the person before you onboard him. Because you want to get closer to that physical feel. So if you have a video call, you'll get there. So those are deterrents that you can establish when you're onboarding, which is what we do. But in our what we are seeing is when scale of hiring goes up, subsequently fraud goes up.
Makes sense.
So
So,
like what used to be maybe 2-3% fraud rates in 5 years ago is now like 6-7%.
So according to you, what makes festive season hiring different from regular hiring?
Yeah, I think festive hiring, like right now we are going through the Diwali peak, right?
Yeah.
So what happens during festive seasons is obviously a lot of people are starting to order stuff. So e-commerce just volume increases. So generally it increases by about, like, our hiring process also, it increases by about 30-40%. More hiring happens during these months. And these can be either direct onto the roles or flexi. In Amazon's case, there's something called Amazon Flex, which is flexi workers who are just onboarded for a period, or they're given tasks on randomly, they just make extra cash, right? So the flexi roles increase. So that's how these platforms also tend to flex, making sure that you can do the peak, and then you don't need to continue with them for the until the next peak, right? So those kind of things these platforms are able to do. Now, what happens with high rises in hiring sort of numbers is, again, like I said, the moment it goes up, the demand goes up, the fraud significantly goes up. So during these times, we see about 1 or 2 additional percentages of fraud cases that are showing up just because of volume, and nothing the platform is doing wrong. It's just
Yeah.
nature of hiring, but we are here to protect them, so it gets solved. We just don't allow them to enter the system.
Got it. So, what kind of fraud do you see most often? And like, why do they still get pass checks?
They don't get past checks,
Okay. I
right?
mean,
Like, I mean,
frauds do happen, right? Like,
so I'll tell you two parts to it, right? One is what is fraud? What is the definition of fraud? Is the first question, right? Like, fraud can be of 3 or 4 types. One is identity theft. Identity
hmm,
theft cannot happen if we are around. Just won't happen because we catch everything, right?
hmm,
Second is past history. Is there an FIR against him? Is there a court check against him? We'll know
hmm,
because that's all digital data. There's no way a guy who has a FIR or a court will enter the system, right?
hmm,
Third is Aakriti Bansal could be pretending to Ashok. Not possible, right? These
hmm.
three, we have completely eliminated these three fraud. The only fraud that can happen is a good, like till now he's been good, tomorrow he can become bad,
Yeah.
right? Like he can steal, blah, blah, blah. We can't do much about it. It is what it is. But not your past performance is no indication of future performance, like mutual funds mein bolte hain na. That's how I would term that. You can't do much about it. This happens, which is why you do repeat checks,
Okay.
right? Like this is why you do that face match at the point of delivery, because you want to make sure that it is Ashok delivering. So there are checks and balances you can put in place. You can decide to do it frequently or not so frequently. It depends on how frequent you are. If you are very frequent, you might not
Hmm.
have as much fraud. But what you can do, especially in the e-commerce side, let's say, what can he do? He can steal stuff. He can take money and run away. Blah blah blah. As
Hmm.
long as you have his address and address is verified, you know where to find him. You have his ID card, you know where to put a court case. So you're also using the data that you've collected to make sure that you can do due process when in the event of something that happens, right? Um, what is crazy though is there are still a lot of platforms who don't take this verification seriously, and there, anything can happen,
Hmm. Okay.
right?
So,
Anybody who uses us, nothing will happen. Anybody who doesn't use us,
yeah. So, how common is it for like banned workers or duplicate profiles to return with new IDs?
unlikely.
doesn't happen much. Okay.
right?
Uh,
What we insist with when we are onboarding is, one is the person has to present his Aadhaar card. Aadhaar card, there cannot be a duplicate Aadhaar card, not possible. So if Aadhaar card check ho gaya, number same hai, so he won't get onboarded at all. Right.
hmm.
Driver license, you can have different driver license. You can have one in Karnataka, one in Maharashtra, but the Aadhaar card is the one that we use as a singular this thing. Ashok Hariharan
Hmm.
Aadhaar card mil gaya. Then we do the driver license check.
Okay.
Right. So
Hmm.
identity theft, we've eliminated that altogether.
Okay.
Right.
Uh,
Synthetic identity, all of that won't happen.
so you are saying that fake or AI made IDs
Chance
are
ही नहीं,
not a
chance
threat?
ही नहीं है. As long as you're doing the verification, a chance नहीं है. If you're not doing the verification, God help you.
Hmm.
Right.
Okay.
So I actually did a talk on this topic 6 months back. We have a podcast on this topic on how you can completely eliminate. There is no chance that a deepfake ID card can get through a system like ours, or for that matter, like some of my competition as well, right?
Hmm.
Like if you're using us or any competition today, like ID theft to nahi ho raha.
Okay.
ID theft or synthetic identity not possible, because you can always check against Aadhaar. Aadhaar is only singular identity. So you might present a fake ID card, but the number will, when you check the number, it will not show up in the Aadhaar
Hmm.
database.
Hmm.
So, people were panicking for no reason, and random people were writing LinkedIn posts, and I was sitting there going, you clearly don't know what ID verification means, number one. But
Hmm.
there is a risk, right? Like there are lots of systems where the verification is not done. They're just
Hmm.
looking at the ID card and saying, "Ha, ye banda sahi hai." Then you're opening up to your own like realities.
Yeah. So another question is that how does moonlighting show up in your work? Like, are these only verification issues or also worker related issues?
So blue collar or white collar? Which one? Which question are you asking for? Blue collar specifically or white collar specifically?
Blue collar.
Blue collar में moonlighting मिलना बहुत मुश्किल है. But that's okay. I don't think
Hmm.
any of the platforms care about moonlighting.
Okay.
You can like have you seen these people? They'll have the Swiggy hat. They'll take the hat out and they'll put the Zomato and the bag. They'll just take that out. That all happens,
Yeah, that's very common.
and that's so common. And I don't think the platforms care either. They don't mind it.
Okay.
Like the whole concept of flexi work, right? Like if you think about
Hmm.
Amazon Flex is designed with the
Yeah.
fact that you can deliver for Amazon, you deliver for somebody else. Yeah, it's okay.
Hmm. So coming to technology and the process now. So where do you see AI and automation making the most difference in fraud detection?
Yeah,
You
I
mentioned,
think like I said, the deepfake, like what you were
yeah,
asking, right?
yeah.
Deepfake ID cards, etc. All of that is AI driven thing. So I detect tampering in a document, all of that, right?
Hmm.
Um, so so maybe we are at the forefront of it. Is that we are able to detect liveness, we are able to detect that this is a deepfake, we are able to detect that this is a tampered card. These are important steps before you do the verification, right?
Hmm.
So as the fraudsters start using AI platforms, we have to use AI platforms to kind of build this. We have
Yeah.
a 60-member AI team. We built everything in house. This is not a ChatGPT wrapper like uh,
Hmm.
what India is doing in general. We built it in house, and that's sort of how we've solved that problem. Um, so I think increasingly what will happen is the fraudsters are continuously going to try to find ways to break the system, and we'll have to keep up with it. But certain types of fraud will never happen. Like this synthetic identity in India is not possible. Globally, it is. India में आधार
Hmm.
है.
Yeah.
Like government has solved that problem for us, right? Like it's brilliant if you think about it, because you can't have a
Hmm.
duplicate Aadhaar. You can't have two Aadhaar numbers. So you're unlike a PAN number. Like people are able to
Hmm.
fake PAN, but they can't fake Aadhaar because it's biometric driven. I have only, my thumb will only work once. Again, if I
Yeah.
try to register it, I won't get to register. So those are benefits that you have in India, which we don't are not
Hmm.
there in other countries. So
Uh,
so I do think the India stack solves for
hmm.
a significant amount of risks that we have on these kind of risks, identity risks. Risk exit in other places, like where a person can become a fraudster. How do
Hmm.
we know that? How do we then create a database of fraudsters so that they don't enter the system again?
Hmm.
Can we eliminate people from entering altogether? Can we normalize KYC. Like for example, like what you asked, right? If you're not doing a Aadhaar verification, then you're obviously you're going to have a fraudster. The chance
Yeah.
of fraud. So if everybody follows the same KYC process, then they don't enter the system.
Hmm.
That's what we are also. I think that's what MeitY also wants everybody to do. We, all the regulators have to align to the same standard.
Yeah. So like you mentioned your in-house deepfake detection tool, right? So how accurate would you say it is?
So we have actually certified on this, 100% accurate on fraudsters.
Okay.
So if a fraudster if a deepfake enters, we'll catch it 100% of the time. Sometimes we will also show that the real photo is fake, and sometimes they'll have to just retake it. That happens in about 7% of cases, but 100% accuracy. We've been certified. There's only one certification agency globally which certifies liveness. We are the
Hmm.
only ones which have a single frame model, and that there are only 20 companies globally who are certified. We are the
Hmm.
only ones from India who are certified, and we are the only ones globally with a photo-based model and not a gesture-based model. All the other models are like they tell you to move your hand, wink an eye.
Hmm.
You would have done this Zeroda wala where you hold up the what is that called?
Hmm.
The placard and recite. All of that is not needed. Those are all
Hmm.
consent. Like those things are fatigue, like that has significant drop off. You can do it with a single photo. That's sort of what we are certified with. The certification agency is called IBETA. It's a US based agency. There's only one agency which does
Hmm.
it. Yeah, you can check it out. We are level 1 certified on that.
Okay. So, can you share an example without, obviously, without naming the company where poor verification caused like big problems in e-commerce specifically?
Uh, See, so there is a great example, but I'm just trying to figure out how to tell you without revealing who it is. Mm. Okay, ride sharing apps.
Hmm.
A lot of them don't do any much verification. Okay, so
Hmm.
what we ended up doing about couple of months back is or last year is we have a lot of data on cars and things, cars, bikes, etc.
Hmm.
We started noticing on the roads which are the cars, like the taxis, and started to take those license plate numbers and store it, and store it matlab, run checks on them, like court record check. We found out of the we did this on a sample of 2000 cars, and we found 7% hit rate on serious crimes,
Okay, that.
accidental deaths, drug deals, and things like that. We presented it to some of these guys. One, like some of them have
Hmm.
moved to us because they are doing the verification. We are doing very good. So this is like serious, right? Like there was one car where we were
Hmm.
sitting inside, like my product manager was sitting inside, searching on the car. This car, while he was sitting inside, he checks it on our platform and realizes it was involved in 2 accidental deaths. Accidental deaths.
Okay.
So obviously he got out, but this is, um, I mean, and this news has come out so many times, right? Like there was rape
Hmm.
cases in, and
Yeah,
in spite of this, some of them are not doing any verification. And I
that
and
major, yeah. So, coming to rules
some of
and
them, not
compliance.
all. Some are
Yeah.
very good.
Hmm.
I'm not terming like everybody in
Hmm.
that bucket.
Yeah.
Like there are 50% do a great job. 50% are doing absolutely nothing. Not even using my competition to do verification. I'm
Hmm.
saying nothing.
Okay. So, coming to rules and compliance. So there has been, I think there has been industry talk about shared fraud lists across platforms.
Yes, yes.
So what would it take to make that work without hurting privacy?
Yeah, so the way that we envision it, and by the way, we are part of that forum that is
Hmm.
doing things, is we the way we envision it is every platform, like for example, if it is a Zomato, if it's a Flipkart, their own database they can store. There's no problem, right?
Hmm.
So we don't create a centralized database. Don't worry about that. You have your own storage. You also, at the point of getting the user, take consent upfront, saying that your fraud database will be sort of, we will create a database of fraudsters for us, and that will be shared. Take that consent upfront. Number one. Number
Hmm.
two, in the DPDP Act specifically, there is a carve out for fraud. Okay, so you can use the carve out to do this as well. I
Hmm.
don't think industry-wide you can create a centralized database. Who should hold it? Who has rights to it? How do you manage the ombudsman for it? How do you know that you mark me as fraud? How do I know that I am a fraudster? All of those questions do exist. So I would suggest like the way we think about it is store your own data, run your own checks. You can share you like when Ashok Hariharan comes, you can ask Zomato, is he on your list? You can ask, Flipkart, is he on your list? You can do those kind of things. Those are all completely legit. There's DPDP Act has no problem with storing. In fact, there's a carve out for fraud which exists, so it's completely fine. There's no issues as long as you take consent upfront. Take it,
Hmm. Hmm. So,
but
how does it?
you have to take consent upfront. One, and number two, there needs to be necessarily a way for a person to challenge.
Okay.
Right? Like, how do you know that if you mark me as a fraudster, then prove,
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, makes
right?
sense.
Otherwise, it's not fair. So I do think ombudsman is required. As long as you
Hmm.
take these two or three basic criteria in place, I think it's fine. Yeah.
So, how does India's approach to verification compare with what you have seen in other countries?
I honestly, I already mentioned this while I was talking. India is gold standard at this point.
Hmm.
The India stack is spectacular. The amount of data that is digitized is spectacular. Our laws, like specifically the DPDP law, it's like gold standard. I mean, it's equivalent to GDPR. Like even the US doesn't
Hmm.
have as strong a law as we do. I think we are easily 10 to 15 years ahead. Not only ahead of developing markets, I'm talking about ahead of developed markets.
Hmm.
There's probably like a couple of European countries which might be better than us. Maybe there are a couple of like, Singapore might be better, but that's it. Like, we are at this point, I think we are ahead of everybody else. UPI, Aadhaar, I mean, tell me which other country has, a ID platform like Aadhaar.
Hmm.
Yeah, so far ahead, it's not even a joke. I'm surprised we are not a first world country,
So, like beyond fraud, what hidden cost do companies face when verification is weak? Like maybe lost goods or
Yeah,
something.
lost goods. I think we have had a lot of our customers. The reason that they choose us I mean, we are more expensive than everybody else. They choose us is because we catch ahead of time, number one, and we are able to
Hmm.
triangulate. If something happens, we know where to go find him. Now we don't go find him, but we know that address was verified,
Hmm.
etc. So there's leakage, 3 points of leakage. One is when there's high ticket goods, right? Like for example, TV, and doing
Hmm.
cash on delivery. Cash is being
Ah.
held. So one day ka cash bande ke paas ho sakta hai, and if it's a high ticket size item, then it could be a pretty large sum. It could be in the 50,000 to a lakh range. So
Hmm.
the guy can abscond. The second one is the trucking and delivery systems. Like these are centralized, where you're bringing from warehouse to warehouse, right? There could be leakage there, where darks, you're taking. So there's at the last mile, it is the delivery side. At the middle mile, it is actually the truck side,
Hmm.
and at the other end, which is the warehouse and stuff, there could be leakage where stuff is getting out. So there are checks and balances you can put in and all of these. I think the biggest problem, the it can be controlled at the warehouse. Where biggest problem is going to be at the middle mile and the last mile.
Hmm. Hmm.
Warehouse you can control through using security, right? Technically.
Yeah. Yeah. So, just two more questions.
Sure.
So, how do companies balance the need to hire fast with the need to hire safely?
I think every company has their own policies and ways of doing
Hmm.
this. Some are more careful, some are less careful.
Hmm.
Also depends on the platform. Like for example, if I am hiring in the warehouses, I can control using security, right? Like
Hmm.
what is like nothing really can get them. But at the last mile, you want to be a little more careful. Middle mile, you only need to worry about chori. On the last mile, you have to worry about rape. Uh,
Hmm.
10 other problems that are not just related to that. That is a lot more brand. The brand can get affected if something happens in the last mile. Brand doesn't get affected when something happens in the middle mile or in the warehouse, right? So your checks and balances should be far stronger in the last mile. Middle mile
Yeah.
is, I mean, yeah, you have a risk which is revenue leakage risk. So maybe it's more risk oriented approach and least risk at the warehouse, right? So that's how I would look at it.
Okay. So
And but
let
the hiring is all in the last mile. So technically, the volume
yeah.
of hiring is in the last mile. So you have to be careful. But yeah,
Hmm.
some decide not to do anything,
Hmm.
especially some highly funded startups who are more worried about growth rather than security.
Got it.
Like
So
especially the IPO'd ones, they are a lot more worried, right? Because now your brand is
hmm.
you do something wrong, your stock can go down. So they tend to be a little more careful.
Hmm. So, this is my last question. So, if you look 5 years ahead, what would a fair and future-ready verification system in India look like?
Yeah. I think there'll be three additional layers apart from identity and past history. I think one of the things that will necessarily happen, I feel, is this centralized, not centralized or decentralized DB of fraudsters. Like that has to happen because that you while somebody might not have raised an FIR, but
Hmm.
there has been fraud, right? Things like that. I do think there is a significant risk. We have been talking about largely supply side risk. We are not talked about demand side risk, right? Supply side is the delivery executive committing some sort of crime. But what if the customer is doing something to the delivery executive? So customer is doing to the beautician comes to your house. Uh,
Yeah.
uh, what isn't her life also important?
Important.
I think that's where I think uh, more checks needs to happen. Today, nobody's talking about it.
Hmm.
Maybe it's being hushed out, whatever, but there is a significant risk for
Hmm.
the driver or the uh, rider, like like the
Yeah. Yeah.
so we need to be careful about not exposing our employees to risk and on the other side. So I think that's a layer that should start coming through. And
Hmm.
that risk is not just about like today Flipkart, Amazon, all the commerce guys are looking at it as a revenue leakage risk. Like, oh, cash on delivery, अरे यहाँ इस zip code में cash on delivery मत करो because there might be higher, people
Hmm.
might return more or whatever. I think that needs to move towards protecting your employees.
Yeah, makes sense because nobody is really focusing on the customer side of things, what
Correct.
customers are doing to these
Correct.
delivery.
And I'll tell you, I heard in I mean I whenever I take a ride in one of those ride sharing
Hmm.
cars, I won't mention either one's names.
Yeah.
But when I'm sitting there, I was asking them, hey, आपको क्या डर लगता है, and they were saying, like, repeatedly people have said, especially in Karnataka, etc., there are these auto drivers and Kalipili drivers who
Hmm.
tend to be customers. The guy comes and then beats the crap out of him, the driver, right? Because he
Yeah.
doesn't. So,
Hmm.
so they are worried about it, and that happens today.
Yeah, there have been a lot of cases in terms of delivery workers also. Like
Exactly,
they are mistreated by customers,
exactly.
and there's nothing much that the delivery partner can do on that front,
Why
except
not?
for rating them bad, maybe. But other than
Yeah,
that,
no, but that, I think that there needs to be a database for bad actors. Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
Why are we only talking about the riders being
Hmm.
uh the the culprits, right? Like customers are also
Yeah.
treating people badly.
Hmm. Hmm.
Uh, and
Makes
that's what I think should happen. But yeah,
Yeah. So I think that's a good note to wrap up on, and we'll give our readers something to think about.
yes,
So, Ashok, thank you for sharing these insights with us today. And to
yep.
our viewers, for more such conversations on tech policy, follow Media Nama. Thank you for watching.